We watching it together?
Stop the FOMO. Okay, wait, honestly, you're gonna have major FOMO after today. I know I do, because Sony has finally lifted the embargo on its flagship TV technology that it has been working on for the last 20 years. My friends, the story of this TV technology starts with the Qualia TV in 2004. Wait, Qualia? What's Qualia? Qualia was a boutique brand of high-end electronics created by Sony to showcase their best technology. So what's so special about this vintage Qualia TV that cost over $20,000 in today's dollars? Well, if you happen to have this TV collecting dust in your garage, you, my friend, are the proud owner of the very first RGB LED TV, beating Hisense and Samsung to the punch. Boom! Apparently, I was premature when I was jumping for joy, remember that, at CES 2025, announcing that Hisense was the leader in innovation, when in fact, Sony had this in 2004, and now over 20 years later, we have the second generation of their RGB LED TV. Hisense calls it RGB Mini LED, and Samsung calls it RGB Micro LED. Essentially, it's the same, but this is Sony's own homegrown special sauce. Let's talk about it. This is the Bravia 9 using the current Mini LED LCD TV stack, and this is the new RGB LED stack. The biggest advantage is more color volume, more color saturation at higher luminances than any of the other available technology today, even more so than QD-OLED. And this is why RGB LED TV technology is so important to Sony's future. And the best part was we actually got to see the RGB LED TV prototypes in person next to a competing RGB Mini LED TV. Now, without sharing with us which brand that was, Brian Tong did say to me, FOMO, are you going to say hi to the competition? And my response to Brian was, only if it made sense. We'll let you figure out who that brand is. Now, ultimately though, that's not the big surprise. The big surprise was the Sony prototype looked better, punchier, and it was 4 years old. Yes, they've been working on it this long. They didn't want to show us the current prototype. They showed us an older prototype. And this leads me to answer the question that you've been waiting to ask. FOMO, when is it coming? And I'll tell you this, it is not coming in 2025. This is a 2026 TV technology. Yes, get excited, hit like, let's talk about it in the live stream. Are you excited about next year's Sony RGB LED TV flagship that appears to be the best out there? And it is homegrown. They did not buy it or source it from anyone else. I'm excited. Let's get into it.
Hit it! That's what I'm talking about. Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
Oh,
Nice job. You were like eating your lunch. It's the
yeah.
first part of that.
I don't
I'm
know
like,
what
I
happened.
I'm like,
All right, I'm
are we
listing
still FOMO?
some of the specs that I want to mention, but yeah. So, guys, are you excited? Brian, were you surprised? I mean, let's start with our reaction, and we're going to get to yours. But I did not know what to expect when I got to Sony headquarters. But Brian, share with me
Yeah.
your thoughts on this.
Well, we had to we had a lot of expectations. Again, we were seeing current things. We were talking to everyone. We knew this was there somewhere. We knew that this was on their radar. But I think the misconception that many of us had thought, that Sony would utilize someone else's technology and put it out as their own and just say, hey, look, here's our processor. That does make a big difference. The big surprise for me was homegrown. How long they've been working on it. They've had RGB TVs in the past, and the proof that they are innovating very much behind the scenes when a lot of people have just said, hey, they just throw their name on it. Just seeing that and seeing the prototypes, there were several of them, was a dream I wish many of you could see. Because I wish I could have shot pictures of that seeing the prototypes in their condition. But the shock for me, FOMO, was this is not a competitor's technology that's being leased. This is theirs, and they were all extremely proud of it. And I was very honored to be there, but I just wish you guys could have been there with us. That was the big surprise for me. Not its existence, but the fact that it's Sony's own technology through and through, top to bottom.
And I would love to address Getty's question, because you and I had this exact same question, which is, why am I allowed to talk about a 2026, albeit exciting, advanced technology, and why aren't we revealing the 2025 first? And so this is my theory. I have no inside information, but so I'll start on this one. And Brian, let me know if you agree or disagree. And this is this. So the future is coming no matter what. However, Hisense and Samsung have already declared we are on the cutting edge of TV technology at CES. RGB micro LED, RGB mini LED, you and I both agree that was the most exciting announcement, even though we know it's not coming out anytime soon, hopefully by the end of the year. And so forget QD-OLED for now. I mean, we just want larger sizes. QD-OLED's already out. It's just a matter of, well, will it go 83 or 77? Doesn't matter. It's out. It's nothing special other than a bigger size. Same with the tandem OLED. The RGB primary tandem OLED, better WOLED, hoping to match or slightly beat QD-OLED, but it doesn't move the needle. RGB mini LED totally moves the needle for everybody. So why is Sony revealing it now? They have to remind you, before 2025 comes out, hey, we are as much a leader as those guys, but we're going to flex. We've been doing this since 2004 with the Qualia. Did you forget? And if you go back, and I read some of the reviews, oh my God, they were talking about this RGB backlight, all that stuff. But at the time, people were like, whoop, like, what the hell does that even mean? Now you guys are all educated. So when we say it, you're like, oh, dang. And then the fact that the prototype they had to compare with the competition, that prototype is not even current because they're not even allowed to share you the current one. I spoke to Okasan, like the top engineering guy for consumer TVs. He's like, no way. There's no way we're going to show you that one. Not yet. So they want to save something for CES 2026. And I get it. So hopefully that satisfies. Now, let me ask you, Brian, do you agree with that position, which is get it out now before the 2025? When would you have released it?
Well, I mean, I think you're right, but I'm also going off of what Sony had said themselves. Sony, while they were excited about this technology, was also saying, look, we have current 2024 and then a current 2025 lineup, meaning this is in the future. Now, I don't love that because what we're seeing in the future is a massive leap. But I think to your point, having Samsung put out their micro LED, which is a similar technology, RGB, and then Hisense featuring it, neither one of them they said it'd be here this year, but that could be this year, freaking February, I mean, right before December, it could be right before the end of the year. So I think Sony felt the need to say, well, look, they might even release at a similar time, but they want to at least show their hat is in the ring. And the difference between what we saw at CES from Samsung, which was just a demo, though gorgeous, it was just a demo. Hisense was just demo material. We saw real footage and real content on this new prototype. And we saw real life in comparison to their own TVs, in comparison to the competitors, and it was mind-blowing. So for me, it's more tangible than what we saw at CES. I just wish we could show you that because it's unreal.
Yes. And you have a lot of questions, so I'm going to try to catch those questions because it's jumping really quick. So we'll start with Nigel, and this is an important question. Is this a better technology than OLED? And as we always say, it's every technology is use case specific. OLED literally is perfect in a dark room. But as the room gets brighter and brighter, OLED wasn't designed to keep up with that level of brightness. So in a bright environment, normal bright environment, right? Not no light control, whatever, where you have ambient light, RGB LED, this technology is designed to maximize and really be in a bright room. So in that context, yes, because it's going to hit 4,000 nits And why 4,000 nits? Well, first, the Venice has a dynamic range where they designed the BVM3110 to match the dynamic range of the Sony Venice. And the Venice is their top movie camera that all the filmmakers are using in Hollywood. So you have the camera, you have the mastering monitor at 4,000 nits, and now you're going to have the TV. So it's end-to-end consistency from capture to grading on a mastering monitor, and then to the consumer TV. And so with that in mind, this is how you're going to capture the entire scope of everything in a bright room. And so I think in that context, that's perfect. Now, if I'm in a super dark room, I don't think it'll be distinguishable from OLED, and there are certain scenes, obviously, the OLED could do a little bit better than any LCD TV. But on the flip side, one of the technologies they showed off with their RGB LED is this. Blooming. When you have blooming, let's say you have a bright red image, the blooming is white. It's not red. That white is like, wait, it's a red light. Why is there white blooming around that? So every mini LED TV today has that blooming issue where it's kind of like a white bloom. It's always a white bloom, by the way. Yeah. With RGB LED, the blooming doesn't look like blooming because it's consistent with the color of that thing, and it looks normal. And as a matter of fact, if you see a lot of reviewers, the comments are like, why is your OLED blooming? Because when it's that bright, it looks like it's glowing past what it is, because your eyes is seeing that flare, even though the flare isn't there. And so RGB LED is basically recreating that flare. If you took a meter, the OLED would be perfect self-emissive, but your eyes will not see it that way. And so the RGB creates that fiction that works. And I think that's why it's going to be interesting to see how they go against the best OLEDs in 2026.
Well, and FOMO with that, that light that we're talking about, that color, in some of the shots, it was like a submarine or it was lights in the background. It actually served the scene. Where, if it was a slight red haze around a bright light, it looked like it belonged there. So having the color have more of a bloom to it looked like it belonged. If it's bright enough to where it'll bloom, it looked good. Where if you look at the TVs it was competing with, it was just the white that you normally see with LCDs. What I thought was incredible was the blacks. And the off-angle viewing was off the freaking charts.
Yeah.
Like ridiculous. Basically standing behind the TV, everything was intact, which is amazing for an LCD.
Yeah. And Barry has a very sensible question. Will Sony survive until 2026 after sitting out 2025? So,
they're not releasing TVs. I forgot to tell everybody.
Although we cannot talk about 2025 TV lineup because, we don't really know, right, until the time comes. I can say they're not sitting out 2025. They're just giving you a peek into 2026. So, Barry, be assured we're good with 2025, I think. Yeah. And I'm seeing a lot of
comments. I understand it's disappointing. You guys are seeing a lot of comments about the Osborne effect. I mean, you're seeing a lot of that. I get that, but you have to understand that anything they release, if they don't, can you imagine if you have this under wraps and everyone else is out there showing their stuff at CES? You're like, wait, I'm further along. We've been working on this. So they were very excited to show this to us. And I mean, honestly, everything they showed us, really, I wish we could have taken video of it because there's no special sauce they were revealing. It would change your mind, is what I'm saying. It was, for me, being OLED first right now, what I want from TVs, there's really not a mini LED that can pull me away from OLED, especially these brighter OLEDs. This would easily pull me away. Yeah. And I didn't always feel that with seeing Samsungs or Hisenses, but seeing Sony's in action and then talking to them further about what the processing adds to that, definitely something that would pull me from OLED immediately.
Oh, that's totally. And a lot of the questions are great, so we're going to go through the order that I kind of catch them. And if I miss it, just keep on asking. Wesley asks, does this mean that Sony will be at CES 2026? And I misspoke. Whether or not they're at CES 2026, I don't know, right? But if things go according to how they've gone before, they'll probably have their own reveal right after CES, around CES. Yeah. So I honestly don't think it'll be at CES. No. But we're going to hear leaks, and we're going to have dates, and we'll be able to see the actual launch around CES.
And what's so great about FOMO and I talking to everybody at Sony at various events, even meeting the team in Japan and the North American team. We know a lot of people there. We do bring up their strategy of being later in the year. But if you think about it, CES, everything kind of neutralizes itself. We cover everything we can while we're there, and then we cover things for like a week or two after. Then it's quiet until the TVs are out. Sony knows in the last 3 years, if they hang back, they get the attention for themselves.
Yeah.
They're just figuring out what works for them, and they do have a plan and how they release things. Now, whether we agree with it or whether you guys agree with it, we all want more information. It's worked for them, and that is from just marketing to the guys and girls that work there. It is something that is getting the attention to them, especially when the TVs release, which I think will be probably, changed throughout the years, but it's working for them. It's something they want to do.
And
it's not because they're afraid or they're taking a year off. I mean, CES, as you know, it's a noisy thing. At CES, you're competing with so much, but for the media, we literally have slots, right? FOMO, I mean, our week was fully booked.
Yep.
And we choose which videos to put out. They all get drowned out. And now they're all fighting. So Sony does have this slot. And it's something they really do spend time on.
Now, Michael has a great question. Will streaming services put out content that will gel with the new technology? And so it's all about the content, right? And so this is why I focused on the Venice to the mastering monitor to the TV. So literally, the Venice has been out a few years now, and it's giving you a wider dynamic range as more and more movies are being shot on Venice. And now you have the mastering monitor that can natively grade the entire dynamic range up to 4,000 nits. You now have a TV that does that. It takes a few years, Michael, for the content creators, the movie studios, to start adding all these elements. Now that the elements are all there on the production side, you're going to start seeing more movies that does that. So F1 with, I think, Brad Pitt's coming out, that's going to be using the entire stack, the BVM 3110, and more Hollywood studios will be using Sony's BVM 3110. That's their new HDR grading monitor that goes up to 4,000 nits. Over the next few years, the timing is actually there. So I absolutely expect the content to be there on streaming as well. And now there are some great comments that I really want to hit, because this is one that I want to hit early. Right here. Okay. So they are repackaging stuff made by Hisense and triple the price? Get out of here. You must have missed my video right before this, because go to the 30-minute mark, right? So at 30-minute mark, I did the video, and half the video was to explain they were developing this in 2004, long before Hisense was even born. And now the Hisense has bought a micro LED company to do RGB, mini LED. They have caught up to Sony, but Sony has been working on this, and that's why they wanted to explain to Brian and I directly, guys, the narrative that these guys are first is offensive. We've been doing this for the last 20 years, and we want to get it out there, because when you are an engineer, right, you're buried into your work, and then you turn up, wait, what is this? What do you mean we're behind? This is homegrown. It's not coming from Hisense.
How many times during that demo did we lean over and go, so this is yours? And they're like, yes, it's ours. Then I would make sure there wasn't a language barrier. Is this theirs? At dinner a couple weeks ago, is this yours? Because I think that's what everyone is going to think. So then what do they say and what do they think? And if you think that Hisense or Samsung's TVs are going to be affordable or cheaper than what Sony's going to do, you're out of your mind. Hisense is not doing these TVs to, like, we've seen that with the UX from Hisense. Once these TVs get to a certain level, they are going to charge you. Don't expect that to be a value-based product. So I think Sony's just also saying, like, look, and I think they've also over the years, especially with QD-OLED, thinking people are just putting their name on it, not realizing it's just a film, just a part of the screen. Their chassis, the processor, everything inside of it, it's sound. But that processing makes the biggest difference. It's not just choosing one over the other because it's the name.
Right.
This is beyond that. So his comment is valid, which is the whole point of why they showed it to us the way they did. Why they let us see the chassis and see the prototype in various stages. I wish I could show you the 1,000 cables coming out of the back of it.
Wait, no. I wish I could show you the competition RGB mini LED and
Yeah.
their like 3 or 4 year old prototype beating the quote unquote competition to demonstrate that's theirs. This is ours. And we do it better because we've been working on it for 20 years, right? Now Ahmad Z has a point that many people will be asking. Mini LED or LCD TV is old tech. Why is it still relevant? They keep throwing perfume on a pig. And on the one hand, you're right, but I think you're limiting your perspective, Ahmad. So first of all, when you're buying a 98-inch TV, there is no OLED that goes to 98-inch other than a $25,000 one, and that OLED is definitely not bright enough. 97, right? This could go 100, 115, or larger. So let's do that.
Yeah.
For that size, this is new tech. Now, let's go smaller, right? 77-inch, or say 85-inch, right? 85 is a good crossover. You got 83-inch OLED, and you have 83-inch RGB LED, mini LED, something like that, around 85 inches. Now, it's kind of like you have an electric vehicle that's new tech, and you have an ICE vehicle, internal combustion engine, that's old tech, but they all run on tires. So you can't say, this EV, it's on old tech, it's running on 4 wheels. When's my elevating car coming, right? So it's perspective for a
It
bright...
doesn't fly.
It doesn't fly. For a bright room, OLED
Yeah.
is not, I mean, there are already a lot of compromises. You're pushing the OLED to last less long. Whereas RGB LED has no organic material. Organic is old tech. Inorganic is actually, well, next generation tech because you guys all want RGB micro LED. But that is so far in the future, and it may never come, by the way, because the heat being produced is more
The
than
pixel
what...
pitch.
I mean,
the
it's...
pixel pitch.
I know the RGB is out there, but it's so far out there.
Homo,
Go
what's
ahead.
funny is that this is not just for Sony. I mean, even with LG's 4-layer RGB primary, you guys aren't even looking at that because WOLED is old tech.
Yeah.
Micro LED is old tech. They're all changing as they go forward. If you could see what the RGB mini LEDs are, it's not something you've ever seen before. What it consists of, it's color. And it's not, and this is not a bright room TV. The demos we saw were in a completely dark room. And it was next to OLEDs and quantum dot OLEDs. It wasn't just against other mini LEDs, and it beat it. Not just in terms of brightness, but it's black level. So, I mean, it's not, I know you guys are what you guys are saying, but it's the fact that you're not even going to think about it because you're like, it's old tech, it's an LED. They can easily name it something else. Like, look at Samsung. Samsung calling it a micro LED, which we know it's not. So would you rather they do that?
Actually, let's talk about the performance of the old tech because Robert put up something that I should have mentioned, emphasized more, is the color saturation. So the color saturation of this TV is far greater than the new tech. Let's say QD-OLED. QD-OLED color saturation at 1,000 nits, not there. So if you guys want to hit 4,000 nits and you only want white, okay, we're there. But if you want 4,000 nits and there's some color in there, you have to go with another technology, either micro LED or RGB LED, but you cannot do QD-OLED or OLED. They simply do not have the color saturation above 800 nits, right? I mean, their color luminance is very limited. That's why I keep on saying for dark room watching with full color saturation and accuracy, that's fine. But as you go up in brightness, you need another technology to get you there. And we're not even saying if it's old or new tech. It's the only tech that works. There's only two, micro LED and this RGB LED. The color volume with luminance, those are the only two technologies that can keep up if you want this realistic feel, this impact of bright colors in real life. This is not hyper reality, meaning it's more than real, right? It's what you see around you is bright blue, bright red, bright orange. If you want to capture that, you cannot do it with OLED unless it's under 1,000 nits, the full color spectrum. As you go above 1,000, the color, you start to lose it. And that's why LG did what they did, right? They brought in that 4 stack to get more color into the brighter levels. And that's why QD-OLED, quote unquote, is getting brighter. It's to push it up, but they're reaching that limit. Whereas RGB LED from Sony, Hisense, and Samsung will double that. I mean, we're talking a huge generational jump in color saturation and luminance from what OLED can ever possibly do due to the limitations of the organic material. So, but it's great questions, a lot of great questions.
I'm curious for you guys, only because I'm watching the comments. What do you think is a reasonable price for? I mean, I think what our perspective has been skewed in the last 3 or 4 years of what we think is expensive. And I know the economy and things are expensive. I get all that, but it's only a few years ago that the A90J at 83 inches was $8,000. And nobody was upset about that. Now I'm hearing you guys want this new technology at 98 inches for like free,
Well,
or you think Hisense is going to really release this at an affordable price? I mean,
oh no,
it's like
I
I think we have to,
guarantee, yeah, no, the Hisense one, the 116,
or Samsung's,
I'm sure it's
But
going to be
even if
over
it's under,
15,000.
but
Yeah.
even if it's under 10 grand, the Z9D was 9 grand at 75 inches. Now that wasn't 20 years ago. I'm not saying, but I'm just saying like, it's so interesting that you guys want these things to. They're not going to be 100 grand like a micro LED. But I think yes, is it going to be expensive? I hope it's not just in large sizes. Hisense is showing a 116 as the only option.
Yep.
So forget about price. For many of you, that size isn't even realistic. So
And yeah,
but I find it interesting. There's more kickback in the comments from Sony introducing this without even talking about price or size than Hisense 116, which none of us can fit in our place.
well, I think,
And you have no idea what the price is.
Brian, I think part of the disappointment is they want to buy something today. And I completely understand that. And that is coming because, but okay, first, let's be fair. You cannot buy a G5 today. I mean, you see the prices, you click buy, and it says coming soon. So G5 has been announced, but you really cannot go to the store and pick it up right now. Same with the Samsung. I know for a fact that you cannot pick up any Samsung TV until probably mid to late April, right? And so as far as being able to pick up a 2025 TV, other than the TCL QM6K, TCL, you're causing all of the other brands trouble, you can't pick it up right now. And so Sony, when they release the 2025, trust me, everything will be available at the same time.
But don't get it twisted. The TCL leaks show one of their TVs at 9 grand, and you guys are going to burn the building down. So I mean, so if I was
Actually,
we
no,
still
wait.
have
Actually,
that are $100,000.
Brian, they did burn the building down. The QM9K is more expensive than the QM9K, the X11K, and they're like, oh, okay, TCL's a premium brand overnight, right? So advanced technology costs money. Even TCL cannot keep a lid on the prices when it's that advanced. And that's even not that advanced compared to what Sony, Hisense, and Samsung are doing. Now, Bart, I really want to address this because I don't want it to be lost that we're only talking about color saturation. So, yeah, so only color volume matters. What about 3D depth, sharpness, micro contrast, response time, all of that? And so, Bart, this goes to the strength of why people buy Sony TVs. They always actually say, wait, why does the Sony look like it pops more? Why does it look like it's sharper? So this is why Sony won the last two King of TVs. They have a better algorithm for slightly sharpening, but not over sharpening. That 3D pop, that is what the A95L has been known for. And that's why both LG and Samsung changed their TVs this year, because they're trying to do what Sony does. So believe me when I say, trust me, Sony will also be on top when it comes to the 3D depth, the sharpness, the micro contrast. Response time is gaming. I'll put that aside because Sony has never been known for their response times, no matter what the technology, because their focus is on what you said, 3D depth, sharpness, micro contrast, right? So it comes together, and forget the RGB LED that was just announced. All the TVs before then, the A90L, the A90J, this is what the judges have always said, why does the Sony look a little bit better? I mean, in my opinion, Sony kind of overdid it. It wasn't even accurate, but the judges loved it so much, it still won. So keep in mind that when it comes to those parts, Bart, you're absolutely right. It is important, and Sony, I believe, is the best at adjusting the brightness, contrast, and sharpness to give you that feel, cinematic feel, better than anybody else.
Yeah, and I would say that's the best part of our trip was when you actually find out why or what XR clear, what their focal point analysis, all the things that you see and the demos I wish you could see from a lot of the companies that we see is real content. And with Sony, seeing the processing, what do you guys take from it? You guys really don't see the TV side by side the way we do. Yes, we film them, but when you see what's actually missing on some of the manufacturers, like for instance, the ambient light sensor they added a number of years ago, for every other manufacturer, that was in eco mode for your eyes and eye strain. Well, no, Sony's is really calibrating the TV for, so you can put it in freaking vivid and it was calibrating it for you. Like their innovations that are behind the scenes, the ones that you were paying for, are easily dismissed because we're throwing processing around. We had a chance to really see what that processing is, where they tune the TVs, the extra quality control behind it. These things do cost money. They are premium products. It's not making excuses for them. It's a fact. So when you talk about other manufacturers maybe cutting the corners to save money, that is a tangible difference in price that you have to pay for at some point. So I don't find Sony TVs to be far and away much more expensive than everyone else. Now, FOMO, I think that they're releasing later in the year is a disadvantage in that regard. So when they release later in the year, yes, their TVs are more expensive than, say, the G5 or Samsung because they're coming out 3 months later.
Yeah.
So they have their own launch price. So maybe that's something that makes you think they're ultra expensive. I don't find them, at least compared to LG and Samsung, maybe to TCL and Hisense, but not to the other two, the other big three.
Right. No, I agree. And let's hit some super chats real quick. Swirling Dragon Mist. I just love that name. How's the pixel response time? So obviously we were not able to bring meters and gaming. And it's still, they're still polishing it for a 2026 launch. So the pixel response time, we'll find out. Now, generally speaking, LCD TVs, not monitors, LCD TVs for cinema watching will be slightly worse than OLED TVs that is perfect for gaming. So get the tool for the job. If pixel response times is critically important, 83-inch OLED all the way, unless, $25,000 G5, 97 inches in the works for you. But yeah, pixel response time can't beat OLED. I'm all about that. So yeah, thanks for that super chat, buddy. And Getty, thank you for that super chat. Is a 100-inch Sony RGB LED panel in 2026 possible? Now, we weren't given any sizes, so let's talk about the last bit, sizes and pricing, right? So as far as sizes, now we saw different sizes, so we know you have 85 that could be done. You know that 100 obviously could be done, or larger. Sony's marketing and product team has to decide what size should they launch at first. Like Hisense decided, we're going to launch 116-inch first. Samsung is deciding maybe the 98-inch first. And of course, I'm asking...
Samsung also said it might be 8K first.
Yeah, it might be 8K 98-inch first. And I'm hoping we see an 85-inch first, because I think that's a sweet spot. But maybe 85-inch at that price is like, and which takes us to pricing. What's the prediction? Because I have no inside information. It's so early, like with supply costs going up due to global tariff issues. Who knows what that means, right? What do we think this is? So let's just use Hisense as, well, I don't know what the Hisense pricing is going to be, but listen, they have a 116-inch, and everyone's saying it's over 20 grand. I completely accept that because 116-inch is huge for an advanced technology. Over 20 grand makes sense. Last year, TCL's 115-inch was 15,000 on an older technology. So another 5,000 for a newer technology at 20 grand. I see that for the 116-inch. Yep, that's larger. But then if Sony introduces something that's quote unquote only 100 inches, I'd say 15,000 or above. And that's my guessing, because next year, inflation or deflation being what it is, we don't know. But definitely, let's just say it's not going to be cheap. It's going to be expensive. And this is something that I'm going to have to put up, which takes us to this comment. Okay, so new Sony TVs are going to be 10,000. No thanks, I'll pass. And I'm like, Didn't you see my sale price right here? Like this is the typical Sony TV sometimes, right? It's under 1,000. When we're talking about the best TVs, we're talking about a Ferrari. You know that.
That's funny. I wonder if you think that the big reveal was they're going to have no new TVs.
No. What if the big reveal was $1,000 LCD TV? Like, I'd have everyone leave my channel. Like, I waited for $1,000 Sony TV. No thanks, right? Trickle down, KB. Trickle down. Just stop and think. Trickle down theory, right? The Z9G the Sony LCD TV that cost like $15,000 just 4 years ago. You could get better performance out of a Bravia 9 4 or 5 years later for half the price. And so the same will happen here.
Or FOMO, the 85-inch Q1 Neo QLED 8K was nearly $10,000 last year at 85 inches. So it's like these companies still want to have a luxury or a higher premium lineup. That eventually trickles down to their next levels down. That's the exciting thing. But clearly, you guys are a little interesting.
Well, you know what? When you have over 700,
this channel will be good for Sony to read if this is what you want to hear what they think.
Okay, so obviously this is a flagship. Apparently, people don't want to hear the flagship excitement. I'm excited for the future.
Yeah. So my question for you guys is, and this is not a knock, but for a lot of you, how long have you guys been in to the home theater hobby? Because when I got into it, I spent an absurd amount of money on a 75-inch TV that cost more than a lot of us are willing to spend now. I know times have changed, but it's exciting technology that's pretty incredible. And we saw it in a dark room go against an OLED. And the thing about it too, what really impressed about it was Sony's signature of shadow detail and allowing some blooming for shadow detail. This device, the shadow detail was off the charts with no blooming at all other than the color blooming. So shadow detail was super important. Also, talk a little bit about the quality control FOMO of the MIMU and some of the other things that we were going to bring up. You have that for later talking points?
What? Or yes, we have that. We're going to kind of get the initial shock of future technology out of the way. Because there's a lot of, and I want to get into the other technologies we saw there. But this is a great comment because I want to give SV File a chance to share this and then give him perspective. This is bad marketing, says SV File. Wait to buy our new tech next year. You can't afford. Sony should have revealed 2025 lineup first and this way later. So to be fair to all the brands, didn't Samsung do this? Didn't Hisense do this? Didn't TCL do this? So at CES, Hisense didn't even mention the U8, the U7, the U9. I didn't even know they had a 2025 lineup. All I saw was, an amazing new laser TV. An amazing new RGB. Right, micro LED. And guess what? People went nuts. And then we still haven't seen the Hisense U8, U9, U7.
No, we're going to see it in I think 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I'll actually see that lineup for the first time.
But we have no idea what it is. And TCL the same. They hid their QM8. We haven't seen the QM8. We saw a QM6, and then you see a micro LED, and then you see this RGB mini LED prototype. So TCL is trying to show off what they're capable of as well as CES with very minimal attention to their 2025 lineup. And Samsung attempted both. Here's our 2025 lineup, and here's our RGB micro LED. Guess what happened? They got killed on the 2025 lineup. Again, the frame now. What? Matte screen? So basically, their 2025 lineup was completely ignored. And then, of course, the 83-inch wasn't QD-OLED, so they got kicked in the pants for that. And what did we love the most? RGB mini LED, RGB micro LED. And so, as quote-unquote bad as the marketing may appear to you, SV, it is no different than everyone else. In terms of, they're looking, what's building excitement? The future. And what kind of depressed people? The present. And then you look at LG. Well, they have 2025. Great, it looks awesome.
But
LG
there's
There's no mention of the future. What's happening next
No,
year?
LG, LG they're all about being in the moment.
Yes, which is great,
So in
right?
the moment, they almost fine.
If you ask LG what's happening next year, they're like no one knows.
Let's tell you with LG really quick. If you look at Sony's approach versus LG's, LG had micro lens array 3 years before they released it. They were like 2 in the moment. Like, I will just hang out with this as long as we can. Oh, wait a minute. They should have talked about that way ahead of time.
And this is a great segue. Thank you, Jason. Let's move on to what's new in the Bravia 9 and what OLED is coming out in 2025. Oh, you guys will love this. And Sony will love this because they're like, wait, what's FOMO going to do? Is he going to talk about 2025 TVs?
I don't know this guy.
And you know what? The answer is...
I don't know this guy.
Wait. The answer is absolutely. I am going to talk about 2025 TVs and 2024 TVs and 2023 and TVs into the future. So let's talk about what to expect in 2025 TVs. And I'm going to set the stage, right? MURA. So this is a Japanese term. And all of you, including Sean in India, I know you could be watching this because we're at your time right now, Sean. The complaint is, why is it Samsung and all these companies have such terrible vertical banding or just dirty screen effect? And Sony, for the most part, has less incidence of it. And apparently, and this is the first time they've shared this technology, the reason why Sony TVs, and that includes 2025 as well. Actually, it's going to even be better in 2025. The reason why Sony TVs have less incidence of vertical DSC, it's that dirty vertical lines you see, spotty discoloration like I had on my Hisense H9F, right? The little black spot on the bottom corner, and color tinting like LG sometimes have on their WOLEDs. You have the little pink on the right. It's because Sony has an actual process in place to eliminate that. So, and I'll just go over the process with you guys really quick. Every TV, whether it's LCD or OLED, I mean, not their cheapest tier, but I think it's now trickled down to their mid-tier and up. So this would include their Bravia 7 and up, right? Maybe even the X90L. At some point,
Yeah, they've been doing it.
for the mid-tiers and up, right? Because what they do is this. Every TV that the LCD panel, the entire stack comes out, the TV is almost ready to go, but not yet. They then shoot a camera. So the specially designed camera, and if you guys know, Sony designs their own sensors, we've seen this special camera. The camera takes a snapshot video of the screen on different brightnesses, right? 15%, 40%, whatever. And every brightness level, there's going to be some DSE because Sony was very clear. All these panel makers, none of them are perfect. Whether it's LG WOLED, whether it's Samsung QD-OLED, whether it's AUO or Hisense or TCL, when we source these panels, they all have DSE. They all have 3 types of MURA. So MURA is this discoloration. There are 3 types. Vertical, that vertical banding you guys see. Spotty discoloration, that splotchiness that is on the bottom corner. It's like, wait, why is that so dark? And you have the color tinting, right? You have that greenish tint on some LG TVs. You have that pink tint on other TVs. Sony then has a color algorithm and a brightness algorithm that offsets and compensates for each one of these things. And then they showed us in action. It was really crazy. So they would show us a white screen of a TV that's plugged into their firmware algorithm. So this goes into the firmware before even any settings take place. This is at the base machine firmware of the panel. And they showed these pink, bright pink plastic color squares on the TV. And they go, watch, we are going to compensate for that. And the pink is a see-through plastic. And so they send it through their camera, through the software, install the software on the TV, and then the TV suddenly, all those squares with the colors, they were all white. And then when they removed the squares, you saw the offset compensation. And I said, so you don't throw away the panels? Because I've been saying, oh, somebody just gets the panels and throws it away. They're like, what are you, crazy? we're not going to throw away the panels, but if
Even
we can fix
taking
it,
out.
we will fix it. And the reason why they revealed it is either they're probably selling it to these guys now, or people discover what they're doing and have been able to reverse engineer it, and so no longer a secret sauce. But up to this point, they would never answer my question. How is your panel so clean? Well,
Yeah.
they just use a firmware at the color and brightness level to offset each of these tinting issues. And then that's why the Sony TVs look cleaner. The panel, it's
Yeah.
the same panel. So when we blame LG Display is like, how come Sony's figured it out and you guys can't? You guys, meaning
Yeah.
LG Electronics, because LG Electronics says, we don't know what Sony's doing. Well, now you know. Everyone knows, right? Go call Sony, buy that camera, get their software algorithm, and TCL, Hisense, and Samsung could address this problem. Samsung has been unable to address this for over 10 years now. Poor Sean has been buying a new TV every year. Had Samsung incorporated this, they would have completely fixed the vertical DSC. And this applies to 2025 TVs as well. And that's another reason why people are like, well, I like Sony TVs because they appear to be cleaner than other brands.
Yeah. So FOMO, real quick, go to this comment, KB2481. I can't time. I don't see it.
Is it this one?
Yeah. So let me talk about this. This is funny. We don't have to do that. What we're sharing with you is what we saw and what we talked to them about. This isn't, I love this Sony apologist thing. So like when I do LG's G5 video right after this one, I'll be called that for them. But what we saw at Sony wasn't just the other lineup that you're waiting for that we'll share once we can, but seeing the extra quality that you guys seem to not want to pay for. That's what they showed us. What we always hear is, how's the screen uniformity? Well, it's better than this one. What they showed us is why. What's the processing? They showed us why. The extra steps that go into it. We always talk about Master Series. They were binned differently. This is a step beyond that. These are not free editions. This is extra effort the other manufacturers aren't doing. And if they are doing it, Sony's the only one lifting the veil. There's no sponsored by Sony on this stream.
Wait. LG is upset.
Sponsored by LG.
How come? Wait, we sent FOMO this hat, and why is he talking Sony?
Because I feel like the more we try to explain the differences in price. That's why I do comparisons. I show you the chassis, and you're gonna get accused of that. But the fact of the matter is, like, they spent the time to show us the difference. Like, these manufacturers don't have to do that.
Wait.
That was the biggest takeaway from the trip.
And KB, if you watch all my videos, it appears that I equally offend and defend all the brands. Like right now, I can go through every brand and tell them what's great about them. That's why I always focus on the use case. Like if you're looking for a great budget TV, I always say, look nowhere else but TCL and Hisense. End of story. Because consistently, those two brands, dollar for dollar, under $1,000, untouchable. Sony can't do it, Samsung can't do it, LG cannot do it, dollar for dollar, under $1,000. Now, at the flagship level, TCL's got issues, right? They're trying to charge Samsung, LG, Sony money, but what about customer service? What about color accuracy? What about skin tones, right? And I'll tell you right now, Sony has issues. One, they are not a gaming TV company. It shocks me that the PS5, the PS5 Pro, all these games, all this in-house development, they are the #1 gaming brand in the world. Destroyed Xbox in sales the last several quarters, and yet their TV division they don't know how to make a gaming TV that can beat a TCL. So, hey, I'm not defending them right there.
And that segues perfectly into another thing they took the time, not just when we were in Japan, but the year before in LA, but I thought it was more poignant in Japan, is when they went from their cameras, the techniques, the studios, the technology, it is on both ends of the spectrum of filmmaking. So bringing gaming home is not their moniker. Bringing cinema home, the reason why that's something, the creator's intent is so important. we met the creators. We met them last year, but this year it was more in depth. They literally, if you want to know why there was a shortage of 895Ls last year, let's just break it open. Why was there a shortage? Because half the filmmakers had them on set, just so they could see the accuracy of what it looked like at home, as next to the reference monitor. So it's great that they showed us that they're not just putting out TVs to match it, their cameras are part of it. The camera they're using for the MURA is theirs. So that's what it is, top to bottom, the processing from the beginning to the end. That's what they hit home. They're not just wowing us by showing us the studio and the surround sound. They show you how it's built and why they focus on that. So if they ever do that with PlayStation, that's fine. But it really is about bringing cinema home, which now encompasses streaming as well. But that stuff does take time and money. The other manufacturers other than Panasonic don't have studios laying around. They don't develop the cameras. They don't develop the software. That's what they're showing you, and that's what they spent the time to show us.
Yep, agreed. And I'm going to share a couple of comments because I think it brings up some good talking points. Let's see.
What's up, Steve?
What about affordable lineups in 2025? So that video is coming, and I think each video has their own space. This space is to share with you the secrets that Sony has been, well, unable to show because they didn't want to. It was a secret for a reason. And then we want to consolidate those into this video so that when you watch my video, it's not like 100 different things. Like, oh, wait, they're launching skincare, but TVs and shoes and 2025 lineup, right? Blow dryer. Hey, AI, Sony AI. So you will get a dedicated video on the 2025 lineup, just not on this one. Yeah, but you will get it. Trust me.
Well, yeah, and look, we'd love to be able to share that with you. That's the way it is every year, and that's not. And what makes Sony different is yes, hanging back, but a lot of what we saw at other manufacturers we can't share. So it's no different. I mean, we sign NDAs from all these companies. It's not like Sony's the only one being quiet. I was actually shocked that they released this and let us talk about what we saw there in terms of just being in the headquarters was phenomenal. Seeing where it's all done, how they test the TVs, the presets, the amount of care that goes into that processing that the other companies are trying to catch up to is something that I wish you guys could see. That's not an apologist thing. It's a fact. And you guys, what's so interesting about Sony too is we talk about German culture and Japanese culture and craftsmanship. That's lost on so many of the products that we purchase now. Sony prides themselves on that. That's going to be costly to some degree.
Yeah.
But that still is what lives in the North American team and the Japanese team is craftsmanship. The average Sony employee we met even at CES has been there 7 years. And the people that are behind the scenes have been there 15 years, 30 years. I mean, I wish we still had that here. But that comes out in the product. That's not something they told me to say. It's what I felt when I was there. That was the best part about being in Japan. And the North American team has the same culture as the Japanese team. They all care about what they're putting out. And more importantly, FOMO, the higher ups that we talk to, that we have time with, care what you guys think in the comments. So whatever you think, get it out there because they are going to read them. They're more concerned about what you think than what we think.
Yeah.
No other manufacturer is asking me that. I'll tell you right now, all the manufacturers we're in contact with, which is all of them, not a single one asks what you guys think.
Well, this also goes to the mistake of VHS versus Betamax. Betamax, failed for many reasons. I mean, multiple reasons we're not going to get into. But there was no internet back then. There was only focus groups. There was only engineers, right? Yeah. Today, it's a different world. They actually have a direct connection to what's happening in the world, internet being what it is, influencers being what it is, not so much that I'm influencing their decision, but I am that connection between you, the enthusiast, and them, because they've brought me in a few times and asked me, hey, would your viewers enjoy this? And I would say, no, they wouldn't. As a matter of fact, focus on this instead for the same dollar. You're going to get more loyalty. Or they'll ask, why are they not buying this, but buying this instead? They're asking me about your buying habits, and my responses are based on this Q&A. Right? These Q&As educate me to help all the brands, and Sony's not the only one. Panasonic asks me, what is Samsung doing that we're not doing?
Panasonic does too, yeah, they do.
Right. I mean, essentially, we are their consumer consultants to help you guys. It's to see what resonates with you. And perfect example is Plasma TV Gamer, right? He would tell me, gamers really want this. And the brand that will listen is LG. Because LG wants to be the best in gaming. But if I went to Sony with that, Sony's like, well, we have these other things we have to take care of first. I understand that. So telling them it's going to be maybe a different priority, but telling LG, they're like, oh, how do we stay ahead of Samsung? Because Samsung also sells TVs made for gamers, right? And the question is, who's important to what? So, yeah. Go ahead, Brian.
To that point is when it goes about gaming. I understand Plasma TV for gaming's point because my decision is based on PC gaming with the TVs that I buy as well. But the fact is, if you chase every nook and cranny of that, there's such a diminishing returns. Now you're going into monitor space. And LG and Samsung are both getting the pain from Asus and the monitors that are chasing all this extra input lag and all these different things. So it all depends on where you want to put your resources. It goes back to them with motion, processing, picture processing. All that stuff is important to them. But that's why you buy a Sony TV. If you want the highest frame rate and all those things, there's a whole monitor thing that they don't want to jump into. Because then the price is going to go up even further, FOMO.
Yep.
Whether it's developing their own SoC, having 4 HDMIs, they know that they chase those things, the price is only going to go up even higher. And that's not where they want to put their resources, and that's not their expertise.
Yep.
And that's okay.
And Middleman has a good point, so let me address this. Is this the only TV you're going to show us? Well, technically, it is the only TV technology we're going to show you on this stream, but the MURA applies to all the TV technologies. But if you want specific TV specs for 2025, that will be for another stream, and at that point we'll reveal everything. Now here's another good question that I want to hit right here is, okay, hey FOMO, remember Sony left Plasma in 2005, and Plasma was the best tech for many years after. Just because Sony leaves OLED doesn't mean it's for quality. So anytime a company
says they're leaving OLED?
Wait, no, Brian, we don't know if they're leaving OLED or not.
We
don't know.
We're talking about one new product.
Actually, let me give it to context. They are definitely not interested in OLED at 115-inch. They are not interested in OLED at 97-inch. So the answer is yes. At the larger sizes, everyone has left OLED.
But even with LG at those larger sizes, they don't have the micro lens array. They're not 144 hertz. They're not going to have the new primary RGB stack. So you are very limited in size. We're going to charge you. So if they did come out with a 100-inch OLED and it's $100,000, no one's going to buy it.
Yep.
So the future is going larger, but that goes into their take of bringing cinema home. But they do have a whole breadth of other products they're releasing. They're not abandoning anything. And by the way, guys, plasma's obsolete for a reason.
It's too hot, too dim, doesn't have...
Electric current problems at certain sizes. They couldn't get larger. They were too expensive. They maxed at 65 inches.
And they
I love
were
you guys. I love plasma too, but it's been a minute.
No, 65-inch plasma was like, what, 100 pounds? I mean, they weren't light because of all the overheating issues.
They had 100 plasmas that were prototypes. But
not to mention the coil wine. Yeah.
But what I loved about what I saw from Sony was reminding us that they are still innovating. They're not just buying other, hey, I picked this one, I picked that one. They can do that. Yeah, WOLED will pick that, or they'll pick QD-OLED. They'll pick different things. But they're innovating behind the scenes. That's what I loved about what we saw. And seeing the MURA also showed me that there's that extra step of why you see a lot of banding on some of the LG OLEDs and WOLEDs, and Samsung has DSC. You don't notice as much of that on the Bravia 9 or on the
Yeah.
OLEDs of the past. There's a reason. I mean, I have an 880L behind me at 83 inches, and the screen infirmity is better. This is the answer.
Yep.
It's just not sexy. That's the problem. It's not sexy and it's not a product. But guys, we talked about this in an earlier video from FOMO who said, what's important to you, picture quality or reliability? Nobody cares about reliability until their TV breaks down. Nobody cares about customer service. Derek and Larry have a freaking channel dedicated to customer service. That was it every week? We just hung out with Derek in Japan. I mean, like, who else is doing that?
It's twice a week, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
that's more than us.
So Patrick, this is a good question because a lot of people wants to see the savings from LG OLED. Do you know what the manufacturing cost of tandem OLED, that's LG's new 4-layer primary RGB OLED tandem stack versus single layer OLED? What is the price difference? Are OLEDs this cheaper to manufacture today? So when we say single layer OLED, it's not so much single layer OLED. The tandem stack OLED, the 4-stack primary RGB tandem OLED, is replacing MLA. That is the cost difference. MLA is incredibly expensive, right? Each lens has to be perfectly aligned with a pixel below it. That's very expensive for them to properly align. So it's not the single layer, it's that MLA they're replacing. So with a tandem, they're able to get the brightness of MLA without the price of MLA and raise the color saturation that MLA could not raise. And so it ends up being a win-win for LG. Lower the cost and raise the performance. Now, here's the problem. They most likely will hold on to that margin for themselves because they were running thin on margins with MLA, not making money. LG Display was losing money every quarter. They're hoping that this will allow them to stay in business. So Patrick, it's not so much are they going to pass the savings on to you, but rather they just want to survive. And to survive, they need to have that margin and keep it for themselves. If you look at LG Display, it is a separate public company from LG Electronics. LG Display, their earnings are horrible every quarter. You're going to see it turn around this next quarter. So to what we always say, let the companies make a little money because they're running at a loss. Now, if they're making a lot of money and wasting it like Google, like Apple, then yell and scream, right? I mean, Apple wasted money on autonomous driving, wasted money on that Vision Pro
So did you.
headset. I did. I returned it. They wasted money on Siri AI, right? Apple Intelligence that apparently does not work. That's a lot of wasted money that they just scrapped. Google, God forbid, if we could list all the things they started and canceled,
God, yeah.
billions of
Everything.
dollars, right? LG is just trying to stay in business with one technology, and they're not wasting anything. So give them a slight break if they don't pass down the savings this year.
Yeah,
But
well,
eventually
well,
it will come.
Well, when we talked about OLEDs, they were never cost effective to manufacture anyway. That's why
No.
they were always so expensive. But when you get into Sony, I'm just glad they still make TVs
Yeah.
because they've said to us their goal isn't really to make money first. Where with TCL and Hisense, it's about market share. It's about eating the market share, and then what they're going to do is raise the prices this year and next year. So that affordable TCL and Hisense, yeah, they're affordable now. But when they release their highest end, it's going to be right in line with anything Samsung and Sony release. So it's like that kind of bait and switch. I'm just glad Sony still makes TVs. They don't have to. When you see the cameras they're making, when you see the screens, the projectors, you see all the technology, the wall they have that all these places use, all these studios use. I'm just glad they don't have to make TVs. I'm glad they're still making them.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're not chasing profits, I know they're a bit more expensive than Hisense and TCL. I won't say they're more expensive than Samsung, but I'm
Yep.
glad they're still. And the fact that their history is so embedded in this, they take such pride in it. Like I compare it almost to like F1 racing. Mercedes makes no money, or they make no money having these F1 cars. It's a legacy thing for them.
Yeah.
So I'm glad they're still doing it.
And
I'm
Brian,
glad
since
they
you're talking, let's change to LG. 2025 G5 or a Sony 2026 or both? And I know we've talked about it, but Brian, you may have changed your mind.
That's going to be
Both?
for our next video.
Your next video. All right, fair enough, fair enough. And this one is a really important point. Sony Pony Steve, clearly Sony fan. Thank you. I like that Sony takes risks as well.
You don't say.
Yeah, a true Sony fan. I like that Sony takes risks. Despite the price for them to produce a TV being substantially more than their Chinese counterparts, innovation isn't cheap, so I don't mind paying the Sony tax. So let me give some context. I don't know how many people have complained to me Sony has lost its mojo. Sony has lost its edge. Sony is no longer the leader. I miss the old days when Sony was the best. And now I got people coming in, what? I'm not interested in tomorrow's future. I want cheap Sony TVs today. What's happening in 2025? What is their affordable lineup? Guys, you can't have it both ways. You can't complain that Sony is not a leader. And when they do become a leader, complain, oh, Sony's too expensive. They're trying to balance as well as they can. They're trying to innovate, but oftentimes they're not doing a good job of flexing that innovation. And also on the mid-tier and low end, when they do introduce something that's affordable, all I hear is, oh, this is a cheap Sony TV. I miss the days when Trinitron was the best. So I'm trying to balance that. Bravia 9, right, Bravia 9 is great, but then, I don't cover the Bravia 3. I don't cover last year was a rare exception. I covered the Bravia 7 and the X90L before that. I tend not to cover those Sony models because I feel that TCL and Hisense gives you a bit more. And same with Samsung. I don't cover the Q80C. I don't cover the Q85D.
I do.
I know you do. I don't know why, because I'm like, Brian, why don't you get the TCL, right? So every TV has their use case.
But when they design their lineups, especially with the X90L and the Bravia 7 or the X93 or the Bravia 8, they are trying to they're trying to build that accessibility for everybody. The thing that Sony does that others don't is keeping the XR processor throughout the lineup. You see Samsung's top processor is only on the Neo QLED 8K. The end. That's where their top processor is. It does not go down. The Alpha 11 is only on the G5. XR Clear and focal point analysis and all those suites that come with the cognitive processor are on the X90L up. Only one doing that. That's a big deal. So when you talk about choosing an X90 over a TCL or a Hisense, the processing will destroy it. Yep. It might not have the same number of zones, but in the end, that's what you guys are going to circle back to, is how does it perform in real content? I hear that every day. They're the only ones giving you that processor at all tiers, starting with the X90 tier.
And
that's a big difference.
So this is a great question, Jimmy. Sony versus TCL in 2025. Who wins now? And Jimmy is talking about TCL's lineup that is more expensive than the Bravia 9 currently. So the TCL 2025, specifically the QM9K.
Careful, we're talking about 2025.
Oh, I'm talking about TCL. The QM9K is designed to beat the best from Sony. And currently, the best from Sony is the Bravia 9, which is what I still believe is the best mini LED TV you can buy in 2025, because I have yet to see any 2025 TV that beats this 2024 model. And so the QM9K is that model. But as you can see, it's limited in size, and you saw the price. Oh my goodness. It exceeds what the Bravia 9 costs. So Jimmy, I don't know who wins now. I have to see that QM9K and the QM8K. I think the QM8K could conceivably beat the Bravia 9. So both the QM8K and the QM9K are positioned to beat last year's best mini LED TV. Will Sony have a 2025 TV to respond? That's for another video, but I'll tell you now, TCL is not cheap. When they design a TV to beat the best from Sony, suddenly it costs the same as the Sony. So look at it, right? You have to give it perspective. When you try to beat the best, you're no longer a budget company. And I applaud TCL for that, because that tells you they're cutting corners when it's less expensive. You don't see what corners they cut. Oh, but it's being cut. But when they don't cut corners and say, look, Sony's got their Lexus model. Well, we have our Lexus model, and it's not going to be cheap. Let's roll it out. And that's exciting because now I finally get to see TCL and Hisense flex, where we say to them, guys, forget the budget. Do what you can to beat Sony. Oh, okay, let's do it. That's also very daring, and I applaud TCL for that. I'm very proud of them for raising the stakes.
But the key is, and we're seeing that from Hisense this year, when they do raise their prices accordingly. Like we talked about that when the UX came out at 85 inches. I put it against the X95L. It did a great job. The minute you guys heard it was $5,000, you're like, what? And that was cheaper than the Bravia 9 at 85 inches. So
Yeah.
it's like, I know the expectations are to keep dropping the price, but you can't have innovation and value at the same time.
Yep.
It just doesn't work that way. I mean, it just doesn't, you want the more, I don't know, it just doesn't work that way. It's going to be more expensive. Everything that's cutting edge, those of you that are enthusiasts, you're not going to get a GPU cheaper than last year. I mean, they're going to be more expensive at launch, and you'll see how it is, but I'm excited about the future. I'm somebody who is still attached to OLED for the reasons a lot of you have stated. To get larger, I'm stuck. I cannot go larger. There's nowhere to go.
Yeah. And Getty, thank you for the super chat. Bring back CRT Tube TV, reliability king. Reliable, but also a backbreaker. At 32 inches, remember the 32-inch Vega, which I had and you had, and I moved it 2 years ago, finally out of my garage, and sold it on eBay, whatnot. Dude, I almost threw my back just pushing the stand and TV because it was like one piece. I am glad CRT is no longer here. I'm sorry, Getty. It is
Yeah,
just,
look, I love that. Look,
oh man, it's too much.
I mean, I love all this stuff in the past too, guys, and I've still spent time with plasmas. I saw plasma at Panasonic. They're gorgeous. They cannot compete with what's out here today.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, CRTs are great if you're gaming and you want to compete, but as far as the image quality, I mean, I love the past too, but it's time to move on.
Okay, and this is in response to a lot of people wondering, hey, did I miss the announcement? So very easy for you guys, and this is why I did the timer. If you look at my timer, at the 30-minute mark of this live stream, I have the announcements. So we started at 8:30, announcements at 9. So if you go to the live streams beginning, go to the 30-minute mark, and you'll see the announcement start. It's only 4 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes, and then you can come back to chat. So for all of those who just joined and say, hey, what's the announcement? Go to the 30-minute mark of this live stream. It's a nice, quick reveal, and then come back and we'll talk about it. So let's see. Got some super chats here. Let me put this at 30-minute timestamp. There we go. Okay. So that when you join, you can see that, and those of you polite enough to just direct them to this, and that'd be perfect. Okay, thank you, Josh, for the super chat. Why is the LG 8K Z3 OLED 77-inch cheaper than the 77-inch ZX, which was $20,000? Is it using a cheaper technology now? Oh, Josh, accounting issues, meaning when it was produced, that was what it cost, and so they're selling it based on what it cost then, and now it's cheaper. So it's not using cheaper technology per se, but the cost of production is cheaper due to scale, due to currency differences. I mean, there's so many reasons why accounting would allow LG to pass on those savings, and it has nothing to do with the technology. Now, cheaper meaning it's less expensive. Yes, it's less expensive to produce, but the quality of the technology is getting better, Josh. You're going to have better heat sinks. You're going to have faster processors. Everything is better the newer the TV gets. So I trust that the most current model, if it's cheaper, more bang for the buck for you. So don't worry that it's quote unquote a lesser TV. Just enjoy the less expensive TV. And Leo, thank you for the super chat, sharing your love.
Leo, where you been?
Thank you for that love, my friend. Thank you. All right, and let's see, it's 10:14. We're going to run for another 15 minutes. Any questions, right? Open up. Any brand, any question. TCL, Hisense, LG, Samsung, Sony. If you saw the reveal about Sony's RGB LED, you have questions about it, let me know. It's a future technology. It's coming in 2026. We're all excited. It's not cheap, but this is a flagship technology. I know someone mentioned, well, Sony's not a Ferrari. Don't compare the RGB LED to a Ferrari. Well, technically, it's not as expensive, but when we're talking about metaphorically that this will be the flagship technology, the best that you can buy at 85 inches and above, that's pretty much the best that you're going to get out of any brand, whether it's Sony, LG, Samsung, or Hisense. And both Samsung and Hisense are doing the same. Their flagship technology for late this year, next year, will be RGB LED as well. No, this is a good point, KB. I want to address this. If this new TV is going to teach me how to use 89% of my brain, I'll be more than glad to buy it for $10,000. If this TV includes AI, that's quite possible. Because doesn't AI leverage the rest of your brain? I would too. Oh, Lord. You guys are awesome. Thank you for showing up with all your comments. And this is a good point. Go ahead, Brian.
What's the cricket? Is that your phone?
No, every time my hand passes by the microphone, because it's sticking out like this. See this? It's like sticking out of my shirt. So I am. Yeah. So like.
Let's wait till later in 2025 to see if better QD-OLED comes out. Would be nice if LG went with QD-OLED instead of. I know that would be nice, but they don't. I mean, they have their own.
Well, Tired of Imbecile hasn't seen the new 4-stack WOLED. So I understand QD-OLED is slightly better, arguably, but I don't have the latest QD-OLED to compare to the 4-stack. We will compare it side by side in May. So those of you who are here, we're going to have a May head-to-head at Value Electronics. We call it the Spring Kickoff event. We're kicking off the TV review year with the LG G5 latest 4-stack tandem primary RGB OLED against the 4th gen Samsung S95F side by side. And we'll have the G4, I'm hoping. So you can see, well, forget the G4. It's clearly inferior in so many ways. There are some things that look similar, but you guys know what the G4 is about. It's all about whether the G5 can match the latest and the best from Samsung. And that's going to happen this May, end of May. I already have a date. It'll be the last weekend of May for you guys. So yeah come on by. I can't wait. I'll be there with Brian.
And we'll have 2 days of uninterrupted, comparing. Hopefully we'll have the 83-inch of the S95 as well, which would be amazing.
All right. And Brian, great question for you. Brian.
No.
If you could get the LG G5 97-inch for a reasonable price, and why is that? Why is that?
Simply because, look, I could get the G4 or the G2 at 97 inches the last few years. I would spend the money, whether it was a reasonable price or not. I need those extra technologies. I need that extra peak brightness. I need that extra color volume. I need the 144 hertz. I mean, the video we're doing after this is why I'm buying a TV this year. Is my specific use case are the things that 97-inch actually leave on the table. I do want 144. I do want 165 hertz. And the peak brightness of the G4 and now the G5 is something in HDR impact I do notice. I do watch content that shows that. So, no, I would not. That's why I'm stuck at 83.
Phantom has a great question because we, off air, talk about this a lot. I know this is a TV-focused stream and channels, but do you guys use or review projectors ever? Would you? So the answer, Phantom, is absolutely. I mean, you guys may not know. I have the Hisense PX Pro 3 that they sent me to use, review, and all that. I also have, I'm very impressed by Valerian, right? So for me, I have so little time, I literally only want to review what I feel are both best in class for the money. Yeah. So I will not review a JVC or a Sony because I know they are good, but you got to go up to the $15,000 plus. Yeah. There are a lot of channels that do that, and that's all they're dedicated to. And I don't want to break down ceiling, wall, whatever, have it installed, and it's such a dedication. But with the less expensive projectors like the PX Pro 3 from Hisense or the Valerian, that's something that I could just throw around, set up quickly, and you guys, it's accessible. So we will have reviews and demonstrations of these projectors just as an FYI. And I'll tell you right now, Phantom, my family prefers ultra short throw at 100 inches to my 65-inch A95K, A95L, QN90. It doesn't matter. If it's 65 inches, wife and kids aren't interested. Even with the lights slightly dim, on a white wall, no screen, throw on the PX Pro 3. We'll watch that all day long. We will not watch a tiny 65-inch TV. I don't care how good the skin tone is, blah, 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 because what they see on a 100-inch on the wall, it's accurate enough. And I also have a dedicated screen and vertical screen to test the Valerian as well. And they're all like, why do you even watch TVs? Like, my family's asking me, don't you want to watch this giant screen? I said, yeah, I would love to, but that's not for everyone. Brian, what are your thoughts on projectors for your family?
Phantom, I have reviewed them, and I'm getting back into it because I have a massive wall here in the studio, and I do love the filmic look of projectors. I always have. But to Fomo's point, reviewing, I'm getting kickback about a TV that might cost $10,000, let alone a NZ9 or a Sony projector that might cost 20 grand. So I stopped looking at those, even though Robert from Value Electronics carries them. I knew there was very little interest in them. But like Valerian sending their newest projector to me, I love the cost to performance ratio. As Fomo said, as we get into these massive sizes, the ability to just buy it and then move it around is so much different than a 115-inch TV that weighs 200 pounds. And now that those expensive TVs cost more than these projectors, now I'm more interested in those, and I'll cover them as well. It's just that once you get into what Fomo was talking about, the ultra cheap ones on Amazon are not worth reviewing. And then the very, very high-end ones have very little interest. So him and I are both going to fall in that middle case.
Yep. And imagine that has a great comparison, segue. The Hisense L9Q, which is kind of like their projector laser TV, ultra short throw, the Samsung QN90, which I thought was a fairly decent TV, Hisense 98-inch UX. So the QN90D does come in 98-inch size, but it's about 9 to 10,000 around there. I think 9,000 now. The Hisense 98 UX, which, if you could find it, it's a pretty good TV, but there's a limit to its. So I'm going to say the Hisense 98 UX is not available for sale because that's quite a unicorn to find. Sony 98X90L, I like that a lot. That's one that I chose for my friend, and they love that TV. So which would I choose in 2025? I would say, imagine that. Wait for all the 98-inch 2025 TVs to be released because they, I believe, bang for the buck, are better than everything you've listed, with the exception of the Hisense L9Q, because that one you're not going to have any vertical banding issues because you have a screen. But even Hisense is releasing an updated ultra short throw. So let's wait until the end of 2025 to make a decision, unless you have to buy now. That means you're really going to 2024. None of the 2025s are available, although we've seen the launches and you and I have seen the actual TVs. If you wait till September, let's look at it. Let's revisit that in our next live stream at the end of summer.
Yeah. Well, and the party is really starting for, if you buy ultra large TVs right now, you're kind of getting in at the ground floor, but you're going to see big jumps in that technology from everyone. They're all reinvesting in that, including LG. Their QNED 89 was excellent last year. Yeah.
And we have a super chat from Cabes. Thank you, Cabes, for that generosity. Been holding out for an A95L, 83-inch. Do you think this will be it? And Cabes, I cannot tell you anything about Sony 2025 TVs. However, it's not going to be long before you find out what's happening in 2025. But for sure, so many of our viewers, including Brian, has been holding out for a 83-inch QD-OLED, just any QD-OLED, right, at 83-inch. And we already know that they're not making QD-OLED at 83-inch at the factory. So if Samsung Display is not making it, no one has it. The question is whether there will be an updated Sony OLED at 83-inch, and you will find out shortly. Sorry to keep you in suspense, but I cannot share that yet.
And as you were saying that, I'm sure MURA, if she's even still watching, is like, what is he going to say?
I don't know what's he going to say.
Oh, man.
Oh, man, I love it. Okay, so we have a few minutes left, and I think this is a great wrap-up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remind everyone that the big reveal is at the 30-minute timestamp. I put up there, right? So on this live stream, go to the 30-minute mark, boom, there's the reveal, and then we have all the reactions. So if you have any questions, you can ask it now. And Brian, let me know what is happening this week. We have so much in terms of launches and releases. This is the most active time of the year for TV reviewers. What's in store for our fans?
Well, for me, I mean, I'm not going to do a video on this news as we've covered it thoroughly here. And the video that I'm doing right after you and I finish, we're going to film is the news of the TV I'm buying. I'll have the first allocation of that TV, hopefully in a few weeks, and why I chose that specific TV and why I want it, which I think is interesting to you guys because my specific use case is similar to yours or completely different, and why I waited and why I'm buying something now. I also still have a lot of TCL QM6K content. We have other TVs that are on the way in, both of us, and we have more tech therapy and live streams going on. We've been traveling, both of us, for a while. We also have the April event at Value Electronics where you'll see the G5 go against the S95F. That's 2 days in a row. So it's very exciting. We have various embargoes that will be lifted soon before TVs come out. So it's whatever dead period we had, FOMO, I didn't even feel it. I don't know if you felt it because it's over.
And this is a really good comment because it's balanced by this comment, right? So EJR says, I love my E95L, which is QD-OLED, but the G5 is a beast. But then Tired says, QD-OLED is more advanced technology compared to WOLED, which is the G5. And this goes to use case, use case, use case. It's like a truck. Go ahead.
FOMO, quickly, I respect his comment. But all these comments are from those of you that have never even seen the tandem OLED. Like, don't even know what it is, really. And right away, it's dead. WOLED's dead. There's nowhere, just like the RGB mini LED is dead. There's nowhere for it to go.
But Brian, he's saying it's more advanced. It is. How do you know that?
But how do you know that top to bottom? How do you know that top to bottom?
And I will say,
I'm not being a wise guy, but this, like, right? You guys are saying the RGB mini LEDs dead in the water because it's a mini LED. But I mean, we've seen these technologies. I've already spent 3 or 4 hours with the G5 and with the Panasonic.
It could look better, but it's not more advanced, and that's the whole point. And that's what I was trying to say. It's like the Cybertruck, Brian. The Cybertruck is more advanced than the F-150.
The lack of open mind from those of you that have never seen any of these. Even if it's regurgitating another channel or you've heard it somewhere, we've been with these products.
I need to give context for related industries that are going through this, right? And the Cybertruck is more advanced than a diesel F-150, but I guarantee you, everyone who's buying a diesel F-150 is not looking at a Cybertruck. And so same with TVs. Yes, QD-OLED is technically the newer technology using more advanced quantum dot color converting layer. WOLED is kind of using the older technology, but to make it perform better. However, on your content, right, just like a truck towing rating, on the content you're using, does QD-OLED do better than WOLED, or is it the same, or is WOLED better? And I'll tell you right now, Tired, if you're watching sports in a bright room, QD-OLED cannot do it. It is not bright enough, right? That's the towing capacity of this new 4-stack OLED. Even the old MLA was brighter than last year's QD-OLED. But on the flip side, if I'm doing color luminance HDR impact, QD-OLED appears to be ahead last year. Can it keep up this year? I think it will. So definitely there is a use case for everyone, and it's a lot more nuanced than just saying one's advanced. Otherwise, the Cybertruck, everyone will buy it instead of the F-150. And as you see on YouTube, a lot of people are getting stuck in the mud, right? Things are falling apart. Just because it's advanced doesn't necessarily mean it's for everyone. But 0 to 60, that Cybertruck will destroy any other truck off the lot. So, you have all that.
Or the funny thing is, then if you need a Lamborghini, you're out of luck. So
Well,
it's like, if you want
the
an
Urus,
83,
right? Get the Urus.
yeah. I mean, it's.
And here we are. Sony, I think this is a great way to kind of wrap up. Are we back in the FOMO Brian live streaming season is what I want to know. And the answer is absolutely. We make an honest attempt to try to live stream at least once a week. And it's normally on the weekends when Brian is free, I'm free, or maybe on a Friday evening. But we are both so busy with non-YouTube related stuff, whether it's me picking up the kids, Brian picking up his kids, family vacation. So we really will try to make an attempt now that the TVs are coming out. So for example, when the QM7K, when I get it immediately, I'm going to throw on the live stream to compare it to the QM6K and the Bravia 9. And I'll call Brian. Hey, Brian, are you available either this day or this time? If I'm lucky, he's available. Boom, he's on. And if I'm not...
Yeah, but then we balance the live streams. Like right after we're done with this live stream, we're going to sit down for another half an hour and do a tech therapy video. So we do balance them out. But yes, we get too caught up in our other reviews. We have to keep this going to keep you guys involved.
Yep,
and we enjoy
absolutely.
it. It's not hard
we
for us
love it.
to spend a couple hours. They always fly by.
And will you have the QM7K this month? Yes, we're both expecting the QM7K by the end of this month. I mean, later in the month. My goal is to do a live stream review with the QM7K before April. But, delays being what they are, it could be the beginning of April. But as soon as I get it, I promise you, within 48 hours, you're going to get a live stream from me. And I think... Go ahead.
We're going to see it. I'm going to see Hisense. You're not going to see it because it's only a New York trip, but I'm going to see Hisense in a couple weeks. So you'll see footage of the 8Q and the 7Q. That's coming up in a few weeks. And FOMO and I can live stream after that and talk about that. And then those TVs will be out shortly after.
Yep.
What's up, Mark?
And
favorite nuclear engineer.
Nuclear engineer? Yeah, yes, he is. Okay, so here's a question that I think I will end this stream with. And I will tell him what I think is the best TV out today. And then, Brian, you can go on and jump in. In my opinion, the best TV out today. And we're going to assume pricing by midsummer, right? Legitimate street pricing, not launch prices, right? So let's just say real world pricing. It's always based on your budget. So I'm going to do this. Entry level, QM6K. I believe for an entry level TV at a price that's around under 700, I expect it to be under 700 at the 65-inch size. Best TV you could buy for under 700. TCL QM6K. Then I'm going to go to the other end. Flagship performance. Bravia 9, rock solid. The G5, rock solid. Those are my two choices. If you're afraid of burn-in, you want cinema, you want different sizes, Bravia 9 in a bright room. All else, G5. And Bravia 9, movie watching, very comfortable with that. G5, everything else, sports, gaming, and movie watching. But it just feels that these two TVs represent the best-in-class technology that I would personally recommend. If you have no budget issues, either one of those, I'm very comfortable. And I know many of you wonder, wait, what happened to the Samsung? If it wasn't for the G5, I would recommend the S95C, which is my current benchmark. But after seeing the G5 next to the S95C, and I know most of you are in a bright room, I am bothered. Oh yeah, S95D. S95D, last year's Samsung. I am a little bit miffed by that anti-glare coating that really did not show well in a bright room. And most of my reviews are in a dark room. So that's one that I think affects a lot of you because you guys have bright TVs. Okay, those are my choices. Brian.
Yeah, so you want the best TVs or the best TV?
What are the best? So let's do best TV. What is the best TV out today for you?
LG G5.
All right.
I mean, we're
And
talking about
I
other
think
than
that's it.
last year. I mean, the LG G5 we saw, compared to the A95L and the S95D, the G5 passes them both. They're not current TVs. Bravia 9 is still the best overall mini LED, but as far as my favorite or best TV of the year right now, it's the LG G5. The G4 was my favorite TV, but here I am as the Sony apologist. So go figure. They stopped paying me at hour 2, so I know I can say what I really think.
Well, you're off the clock now?
I'm off the clock now, yeah.
All right, everyone. Hey, thank you so much for joining us. Expect more regular live streams from both of us as we have more and more TVs. We're going to jump on, share with us our genuine, authentic thoughts on all these TVs. And to those of you who think we are fanboys of any one brand, absolutely. I'm a fanboy of all of them because we want you guys to buy all these brands as long as it fits your use case. The more brands there are, the more selection and the more of you that could have a budget and the right TV for you. So yeah, I definitely don't want anyone to disappear. And I help all of them to have the advantage, right? They need to do well. So yeah, Brian, thank you so much for coming on, my friend. And thank you, Sony, for letting me reveal everything. Until next time, my friends, stop the FOMO.